And get started. Thank you very much to the audience who's joining us on this webinar from the airSlate Academy, which is document workflow automation for Salesforce admins and how to get the most out of your Salesforce CRM. I'm Colin Tubner. I'm the head of the Customer Solutions Department at airSlate, which is the team that helps our customers evaluate the products and implement them. And with me, I have Harry from my team, who's going to be running the demo a little bit later, one of our top solution architects. And also we have Maria Makowska, who is the world's foremost expert, I say that with no irony, in the integration of airSlate and Salesforce. So let's go ahead and get started. So first, we'll talk a little bit about what we mean when we say all-in-one document automation, which is what we're offering with airSlate. Then we'll talk about how, if you are a Salesforce admin, if you use Salesforce, how you'll benefit with adding document automation to your Salesforce practice. Then we'll talk through some of the different use cases for the integration of airSlate and Salesforce. And then we'll see a demo that Harry has for us of how the two work together. And then we'll do Q&A. On the topic of Q&A, feel free to put questions in the Q&A tool inside the webinar at any time during the presentation. We might try to answer some of them as we go, but if we don't, we'll get to it at the end in the Q&A session. All right, so some of the key challenges that people have. Salesforce is a great tool, right? I've been around the IT world long enough to know of some very large tools that are well hated. And I really don't think that Salesforce falls in that. You know, most people who have Salesforce, they're using it, they're getting a lot of value out of it. But it doesn't have a lot of built-in features for managing and working with documents. For things like generating documents from scratch, for getting signatures on documents, for routing documents to multiple people outside of Salesforce. And then also, in addition, we can collect data on documents and store those documents outside of Salesforce. All of these features are really important ways that you might interact with your customers via documents in processes that hang off of Salesforce. So what are the benefits of airSlate specifically when tied to Salesforce? You know, a lot of people come to us, or they first hear about us because they're looking for e-signature on documents that are coming out of Salesforce. And we absolutely do that. But we do a lot more. We do a lot more than that too. So we can do advanced document generation. And what we mean by advanced is not just plopping fields on top of an existing document, but starting with a flexible Word document-based template, having tables and sections that repeat, conditional logic, and really a lot of different things that go into that document to allow it to flexibly create an entire nice-looking professional document from scratch. Web forms. So these are forms that may work in conjunction with document generation to perhaps gather some information from a customer as part of the overall document flow, and then use that information either to generate a document or to populate back into Salesforce or other tools. Contract negotiation takes our document generation capabilities a step further and lets multiple parties redline documents, make suggested changes, and then once the document is complete, immediately go into the e-signature. We can also collect payments as a built-in feature inside of airSlate in conjunction with or independent of any of these other features. And then no-code automation. So all of what we do in conjunction with Salesforce is done without code. We have a series of bots which are configured by point and click and selecting things from drop-downs. And we have bots for systems besides Salesforce too. So maybe you've got a process that starts from Salesforce, but you want the signed documents to end up in your SharePoint. That's no problem with airSlate. So some of the ways that we make document automation a lot easier. Automated document generation can be done using really any of this information that you have in Salesforce. It's not limited to a very simple getting things off of the opportunity. In fact, you can use any custom records, custom fields. You can use parent relations. You can navigate a list of things, and you can get lists of data and move those lists onto documents, not just single records. We also have a lot of no-code configuration via the ability to schedule tasks that are based on reports in Salesforce and do batch sends based on those reports, and further connections no code with external systems. We also have a workflow builder that's visual to create the routing of what happens, and also integration into the Salesforce process builder. We allow you to add custom buttons to your records in Salesforce that kick off airSlate. And we provide an all-in-one solution that's completely managed from within the Salesforce app, so very simple management of users. So at this point, we're going to do a quick poll. So you should be able to see that on the screen now. I'll give everybody a moment to respond. In your opinion, is workflow automation a universal solution to all document-based business process challenges? Please go ahead and answer that. All right, 5 more seconds. Kind of interesting results here. So it's pretty much half and half. So some of you think that workflow automation can solve all of your document challenges. Some of you think no. So I'd love to hear in the Q&A or maybe some feedback. What are the challenges you think that are document related off Salesforce that you're not going to be able to solve with workflow automation? So I hand the next slide over to, or sorry, actually I'll jump into the next poll here. So simpler question this time, are you doing document generation with Salesforce already? As we know, Salesforce has some built-in capabilities for that. You may be using some other tool with Salesforce and maybe you're interested in airSlate. So yeah, are you doing it already? All right, 10 more seconds to vote. All right, so here's the results are in, and about 2/3 of you not doing document generation already. No big surprise there, as I guess if you were doing it, maybe you wouldn't need us as much, but absolutely, we have a solution for you if you're not already doing it. And for those of you that are, maybe airSlate has some additional benefits that you're not able to realize with your current solution. So next, we'll talk about a couple of different customer stories. So first off, we have Rocket Lawyer. Some of you may have maybe even heard of this one. And you know, as with any kind of legal work, they have very time-consuming document routing processes, a lot of work to go get signatures, and then having to manually update records after that happens. Even if the record is simply the fact that the document was signed, that's an update that people have to do manually back to other systems. So with airSlate, they're able to start processes from Salesforce, collect those signatures, and then transfer updates back to off of the completed document and back to the Salesforce record. Pretty straightforward, and you know, this is kind of the standard or most common use case that we see with airSlate and Salesforce. Next, T2 Biosystems. So here for them, their problem was really revolving around drafts. So in addition to starting form workflows off of Salesforce, their users weren't able to save drafts with their previous solutions. And so with airSlate, we automatically save partially completed forms. The user who is filling them out can enter their email address and receive a link to resume their session wherever they were on the document. And finally, Fresno Pacific University. So here, contract management. And this is, in fact, a use case that we've seen for numerous university customers. They have, not only do they have, of course, employee contracts, but they tend to bulk generate these on a per semester basis. So there's a number of different faculty or staff that might need new contracts. So we're able to automatically generate those contracts. And again, this is not just dropping fields on top of a base document. This is using a Word template to create an entire nice looking document using the data that's in Salesforce. And then once that document is created, it can be negotiated. So the employee can make responses to it, provide suggested changes. If those changes are accepted or if they're rejected, the contract goes directly into e-signature mode after that. All right, so let Maria talk on this next slide here.
Thank you, Colin, and thanks for that spectacular intro. Okay, so we are getting closer to see the demo, so I'll try to be as quick as possible. But what we are going to see in the demo actually, and what are the three key modules, three components to our airSlate solution for document generation in Salesforce. We have an integration app that you can install on your Salesforce org from the App Exchange. And there is a free trial with it, by the way, so feel free to check it out. The app will help you to connect your Salesforce organization with your airSlate workspace. And basically, this is where you configure custom buttons that will allow your users to create various documents in airSlate and start different document workflows out of Salesforce without even knowing that there is some airSlate behind it. So your users will not need to know or worry about airSlate. And that's all done in our integration app. Then when you'll be building your workflows in airSlate, you'll notice we have lots and lots of bots, and these you're going to love them. These are very helpful little guys. These are really no-code functional bots that can perform various automation or integration functions. So with bots, we pull data from anywhere in Salesforce. And when I say anywhere, I mean anywhere really. With bots, you can push data back in Salesforce. With bots, you can also push data to other systems like NetSuite, and you can connect your Salesforce activities to your NetSuite activities, and as such save some money on expensive NetSuite connectors as well. With bots, you can push completed files to Salesforce records or records in other systems or records in your preferred storages like SharePoint or OneDrive or Google Drive. And yeah, so with bots, you can also automate different actions within your document workflow. Really helpful little no-code guys. And then last but not the least, our integrated automation. We offer Apex classes for that can be used as when you configure your processes via Salesforce Process Builder or Salesforce Flow. So if you're using Salesforce Flows, you can use airSlate actions like create a slate or activate users. So you can be activating your users in airSlate automatically as you add them to Salesforce. Do not worry about user management. And most importantly, you can trigger document creation in airSlate as a part of your Salesforce flow or Salesforce process. That's really it. I'm really keen to move to the demo, but before we do that, Colin, would you mind starting our last poll for today? Thank you.
So customers should see it now. So how much time do you spend setting up integrations for your Salesforce account? A couple of different options for you there. I have a feeling this may boil down to whether you integrate through Salesforce to anything or not, depending on what it is. But certainly integration is a strong point with airSlate, and it's very easy to set up the no-code bots that Maria just talked about and set up the automations off of Salesforce. All right, 5 more seconds to answer this one. And maybe not too surprising that people were kind of saying it depends. Of course, it depends on exactly how your integration environment, what you need to do, and how complex they are. But certainly, airSlate is a really great way to reduce the complexity of the integrations you need to do. So now Maria's going to briefly talk us through airSlate Academy itself. The Academy folks are the hosts of this webinar, and so I'll let Maria talk through a little bit more about the options there for airSlate and Salesforce.
Yes, thank you, Colin, and thank you to airSlate Academy for hosting us today. Really, guys, so airSlate Academy is a free learning platform that airSlate offers, and with airSlate Academy, you can take free courses on how airSlate works, how you can automate your business processes with the help of airSlate, and of course, how you can automate your document workflows in Salesforce with airSlate integration. So these courses are completely free. Feel free to sign up, and if you are interested to try this integration, make sure you enroll to airSlate Academy and pick the courses that are called Document Workflow Automation for Salesforce, and there are a few other Salesforce related courses, so check them out. Hope you will find them helpful. And yeah, that's what I wanted to share.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. So at this point, we will hand it over to Harry, who is going to do our demo. So I'm going to stop screen sharing so Harry can share his screen.
Awesome. Thank you, Colin and Maria. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Actually, before I do that, I just want to say what I'll be going through. So we wanted to show really a use case that Maria had set up. It's a volunteer agreement. So based on Salesforce data coming from different objects, get a packet of documents out to this volunteer to let them know what they've been involved in, allow them to update some information that we're storing in Salesforce. And we've actually included some document generation, our web form, as well as if they'd like to submit a payment in the form of a donation to this NGO. So after I go through that demo from the point of view of this volunteer who's receiving the packet via our airSlate and Salesforce integration, I'll talk a little bit about how this works and how the bots that airSlate uses to interact with Salesforce are set up and kind of how that can be extended. All right. So first of all, can you see my screen, my Salesforce?
Yes, it's yes.
Okay, great. All right, just wanted to make sure. So this is our volunteer, Mr. William Shakespeare, and using the Salesforce App Exchange app for airSlate, it's very easy to tie the concept of the flows. So in this case, a document package for a volunteer to a custom button, and we can even within the app auto assign it to a layout. In this case, a contact. So there's just before we get that going, I wanted to call out some of the different information. And like Maria said, if the data lives in Salesforce, airSlate can get to it and use it in those document workflows. So of course, the email we'll use to say where is this document packet being sent. But we also have a list of tasks that we're going to actually use to generate a table on the document. And that's really showing that the power of document generation within these workflows is those documents when we have different related lists and tables within Salesforce for, say, an opportunity or a deal we're working. It's great to be able to pull all that information in, present it in a nicely formatted way to our end users. So I'll go ahead and kick this off. So what's happening right now is a new slate, a new instance of this workflow is being created and sent out to Mr. William Shakespeare, which under the hood is really my email address. So it'll automatically redirect. You can, for workflows that are set up where the person clicking the button may want to take actions on those documents. We also have it so that you can keep the end user within Salesforce. In this case, the workflow starts with that external user. And that results in an email being sent to my email address I had tied to this contact. And this email itself is also completely customizable. All the information we might be using from Salesforce for these documents, you can automatically use that within the email itself. So I'll go ahead and open this up. And the first document is really a report verifying some information we have about the volunteer, as well as showing, based upon this list of tasks, in our case, what the volunteer has been helping us with. So here you can see some information, some different information about the contact. With airSlate and Salesforce, any of the information we move onto the document, right now we have some fillable fields. If I wanted to update this and push it back to Salesforce, the two-way binding is there for us. All right, that looks good. I'll say my information stayed the same. And next, integrating that document generation document with web form. Here we'll just provide some comments. Had a great time. And within all these documents, we also have conditionality. So if I click yes, that means I'm done. If I click no, we can gather that response. So, and that can be also pushed back to Salesforce as either a new record, maybe a survey response, or updating this contact or related record. We'll say yes for now. This next document is actually conditional based upon the answer I just provided. So if I had said no, I wouldn't want to share the volunteer agreement because I basically said I no longer want to volunteer. But since I did click yes, we'll go ahead and capture the signature and sign and date from that volunteer. Again, showing the address that we pulled from Salesforce and confirmed. So I've already signed as this individual. Adding a signature is easy. I'll sign as myself. And of course, date fields, things like that, you can set to today's date for making signing process as easy as possible. And lastly, at the extended power of the airSlate platform, we have a direct integration with Stripe. So we have a kind of voluntary donation. It's not required, but if you wanted to, actually capture payment as part of these workflows directly to Stripe, that's possible. And all the data, so what we see here is just a 50 cents donation, is something that could be driven off of data you're pulling from Salesforce, something the user interacted with. We can push the value, the end value number that you want to collect in payment to this form. And once I've completed that packet, I can display to the end user. They can download it right here. Of course, we can email a copy as well. But that's really showing pulling from disparate objects within Salesforce, utilizing DocGen to show dynamic information like that table. And at this point, I was going to show kind of how that's working within airSlate. So I'll hop to my airSlate tab. This is also something you can do from within Salesforce, just wanted to have a full screen. So this flow that we've set up contains the documents that we just saw, so that report, the survey, the conditional agreement, as well as that payment processing form. And it's just a one-step workflow. And these bots are really what are driving the actual interaction with Salesforce, as well as some automation behind the scenes. So the most commonly used Salesforce and airSlate integration bot is the pre-fill from Salesforce records. So here we're saying take information from my Salesforce object or objects and push it into the documents that I'm using as part of my flow. So once I've set up with Maria's account, I select the base object. So we have those custom buttons, or based on reports, we can have a singular object that will be serve as our base object. And here we can either pull single line of data or table. So for that table of information, we'll show that after. And like Colin said, it's just drag and drop with drop down. So it's matching the information from the contact field. I have access to all the fields, custom and default, to pull into the different document fields. In this case, specifically that initial report I'm generating. All right. Taking it one step further, when Maria said we can get access to all the actual data within your Salesforce, for those that are familiar with SOQL, we can leverage that. So for our tasks event, where we have the idea of this contact, which is the record ID we see here, we can also filter on things that are status completed. So for those more complicated relationships that do, as the Salesforce organization grows, they're more common. We do have bots that can also handle those, as well as default relationships like we showed in the regular pre-fill bot. And this is actually mapping to that table of information. So as many tasks as we have, the table will grow, or as little, it'll shrink, and we can push the information from the related task object into that document as well for display of the end user. And of course, all this setup is happening against the flow, and that's templatized. So this is a one-time setup, easily modifiable as requirements or needs change. But every time someone clicks that button, they're leveraging all of this work that's really only set up one time. We also have the ability to move data within the documents. So after confirmation of information from Salesforce, maybe that's used in a later document. So for the report to the agreement, and within all these bots, we can say, when does this occur? So bot execution conditions based upon, say, a field being filled out. Maybe I want to notify a Salesforce contact, or when all the signatures are completed, I want to upload this to Salesforce. Each one of these bots can be conditioned in order to make the process match the logic of how we want to accomplish it. All right. And lastly, of course, on the back end, we have the ability to upload the slates to the contact record inside Salesforce. Very similar, as opposed to which fields are we mapping to. It's which documents do we actually want to save. And you can save it to attachments or files. And where that ends up, as we can see, just go ahead and refresh this page. I'm passing back both the survey and the agreement file to the Salesforce record automatically after completion by the volunteer. So survey, maybe not the most exciting, and this agreement, because I did volunteer to be part of a continuing volunteer, and it also has our signature stamp, which is tied to an audit trail, so everything can be verified. Awesome. So before I hop into the admin tools, so the airSlate App Exchange app that exists within your Salesforce organization, Colin or Maria, was there any questions that we should address now with regards to Q&A?
Sure.
All right. So what we're looking at here is the admin tools within your Salesforce. So when you install the airSlate App Exchange app, you'll see this admin tools tab. And here is where you can, first of all, create new flows. So you have a new process right from within Salesforce. You can get started on that. You can see we have some different helpers that, based upon what most of our customers with Salesforce are looking to do. And here we can manage the teammates. So say which of our Salesforce users have access to our airSlate environment and those buttons as well. And for setting up a custom button, so a button on a record that ties itself to a flow, it's as simple as click create button. sorry. And we'll say new button, not very descriptive. Selecting which flow. So for us, this is our NGO volunteer flow. And here, when I was talking about the fact this workflow is really just about creating this instance of the workflow and sending it off to the end user, we also have the options of create and open, where the person who's clicking the button is also interacting with those documents. And here we can see all the layouts that are part of our Salesforce. And it's as simple as that. So the order of operations is really taking the documents, creating a flow surrounding them, and then tying that to a custom button on the correct object where we want to start this process from Salesforce. With the AppExchange app, we also have a Slate's dashboard. So for each individual user who might be interacting with multiple different flows within their that are set up to talk between airSlate and Salesforce, and you can filter based upon the actual flow that are tied to Salesforce. So you can see this is the one that I just ran through. Filter on status, things that are completed, and we also have the concept of tags. So it's easy to stay organized all within your Salesforce environment, even if you have multiple different airSlate flows tied to that specific environment. Awesome. So that's what we wanted to show you as far as a demo. This is just a taste of what airSlate and Salesforce can do. Of course, we'd love to go more into how DocGen works within Salesforce and airSlate, but we wanted to show you kind of the power of the bots and taking data from different objects, as well as how you can manage airSlate and Salesforce integration all within your Salesforce environment. And with that, I think we have reached the Q&A portion. So if there's any questions, we'd love to take them, and we could even possibly show you how those things work within airSlate.
Yeah, thanks, Harry. As a reminder, there's a Q&A feature that's built into the webinar tool, or if you can't find that, you can just put it in the chat also. All right, so we have what are the prices for the product? You can check out airslate.com/pricing. There's two basic packages, and you do need the Business Cloud package to use the Salesforce plugin that Harry just showed. Another question about, can we share a link to the recording? Yes, our team that organizes the webinar will share out a link to the recording. It's going to be available for people who did not originally watch the webinar as well. So hopefully the video will be helpful for people in the future. That question mentions that there's helpful illustrations of the written documentation, and that's definitely true. I would point people also to the Help Center in the airSlate product. There is a lengthy guide about Salesforce and airSlate that will give you step-by-step instructions on how to set up what Harry showed, and this video is a good augmentation to that. Also, the support team is always helpful. Another question on what's the trial period for this product. It's 30 days. And again, if you go to the airslate.com, you'll be able to sign up for a trial, create a workspace, and it'll give you some information there about that. Okay, so another question here. Can airSlate docs be created to mirror the functionality of web to case forms? So a user completes an airSlate doc from a corporate intranet. Once the doc is submitted, a new Salesforce record is created. That's a yes, you can absolutely do that. So Harry was showing starting flows from Salesforce. For this example, I think you would probably start them from a public link. So there's a feature where you can make a flow available by a link. That's the link you would put on your corporate intranet site. Anyone who clicks that link gets a fresh copy of the documents or forms that are part of the flow. And then once they've filled them out, the bots can create the new Salesforce record with the data that was entered. So yes, that use case is quite possible. sort of a little bit of the reverse of the use case we showed.
Right.
Of course, we did in this use case that Terry showed, we are writing some data to Salesforce as well as getting data from Salesforce, but you don't have to start from within Salesforce. You can start just kind of in airSlate on its own as well.
Correct. In a similar vein to that workflow, I've seen with contracts going up from Salesforce, people at the conclusion of the contracts taking some of the date information for that contract and creating a new record within Salesforce as another representation of that contract and its terms.
All right, last call for questions. All right, so at this point, I want to say thank you to all of our attendees for coming. Hopefully this session was useful. Thanks for the good questions. It sounds like several of you learned a lot about the airSlate product through the session. And please keep an eye out. We'll continue to do other airSlate webinars in the future, so we'd be happy to see you there. One last question here that I will answer. So that you get the App Exchange version of airSlate for free when you sign up for the 50-month user plan. That is true, yes. So that Business Cloud plan, which does have a minimum of 5 users, that includes the App Exchange app for Salesforce. Thanks to everybody for attending, and we will wrap up there. Thank you.
Thank you.